Hey everybody, my name is Sky. This is Chantel. We are doing the Women Healing Naturally podcast. We will be talking on stress management today. Hey Chantel.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. There's a little bit of background noise here.
Is there?
Yeah, our live stream was going on YouTube in the background.
We got lots going on today. So if anyone hasn't noticed, I've been missing for a little period of time, and this has led us to talk about stress management today, because I think what has really become apparent is how much it affects me and how much it can bring on old symptoms. And that made me think about all the people who are trying to heal from any disease out there. The effect, you can be doing the correct, vitamins or medication or healthy lifestyle, but if you don't have your stress in check, I don't think you can get better. What is your take on all of this?
I think that it's not just for people that have disease, it's for everybody. The point is that in the entire world, except for a few people that have managed to create the skills to manage stress, are overwhelmed with stress, and they sometimes don't even realize until something then comes up where they feel burned out or they feel overwhelmed, and then they start maybe even feeling symptoms. And then I think that's really evident, especially for women, for us women, because we are more sensitive to stress, especially as we get older. So maybe something we could tolerate a lot in our 20s, 30s, becomes then incredibly overwhelming as we go into our 40s and onwards. So stress is really the missing piece of the conversation oftentimes when it comes to not getting sick, or why we get sick, or if we are on a healing journey, what can trigger then old symptoms, for sure.
Yeah, look, I remember studying like stress and the effects in the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system and all of this growing up. But I feel like where I'm at now, or where I live my life, is things are much clearer eating a healthy diet. Like, it was really apparent my digestive system stopped. Like that flight or fight, there was no flight. I find usually when I personally get anxiety, I manage it with movement. I like to move a lot. I like to get outdoors and ground. But when it got really, really high, I stopped. I froze. And feeling that is really scary. Like it's a really overwhelming situation to be in. But did you want to just talk briefly about what happens in the body when somebody goes into stress?
Yeah, I mean, stress is not inherently bad, okay? Stress is a response that our body is anthropologically known to get into, because we have to, and physiologically we get into because it allows us to deal with changing situations. The way that the body works is that we have the adrenal glands, which are sitting on top of the kidneys, and they release different hormones, some of which people are particularly familiar with, which is adrenaline or cortisol. Now, cortisol is the one that we talk about most because it seems to be the one that, in a stressful situation, aside from the beginning when we have the adrenaline rush, perhaps, but to give us more energy to get us going, is the one that really is basically the stress hormone. It's something that would tell the body to release more glucose, to stop digestion, to bring the blood flow to the limbs. And this historically and was made in our body, was created with us to allow us to deal with stressful situations, such as running away from a predator, or for saving our life in case of any issues, right? Like you would just want, otherwise you lose strength. Like I probably heard people saying when they have that adrenaline rush at the beginning of a stressful situation that changes very, very acute, dramatic, they will have incredible strength, right? Or for example, you get in an accident, the adrenaline is released into the body, not to feel the pain at the beginning, to survive it. Okay, so you have these stress hormones that are rushing through the body, and that's normal. But then what happens after a while, you settle down and everything goes back to basics, to homeostasis, and everything goes back to normal. The way that we live society right now, we are so overstimulated the pressure and the demands of our world are getting more and more. And so we have this release of cortisol all the time, where we have high level of cortisol in our blood that are continuous. So it's actually not an acute response anymore. It's something that we basically live with day in and day out. And now that creates, however, a knock-on effect, which is, physiologically speaking, again, going to releasing more glucose into the blood and upsetting digestion, disrupting our circadian rhythm, disrupting our ghrelin and leptin responses. So we don't know when we're hungry, we don't know when we're full. It's just our body's just looking for the soothing moment. And there are many stresses, right? It can be our job, our relationships, like, but even fasting, like something like fasting, if somebody over fasts, you can stress your body. So you're going to have more cortisol. So this is why fast cycling in women is so important, for example. So stress can then become a problem when it's consistent. And a lot of people do not realize that. So they don't manage it very well or pay attention to it. And then they will get to a point where the body just starts breaking down from it because, sorry, I have animals.
That's all right.
Because you have this response like that you're disrupting these rhythms in your body. All the organs have to work with that rhythm, and therefore you're going to start having issues. And so this is really how basically it works, right? And it's not. The nice thing is that yes, it's a physiological response from our endocrine system, but it's also our brain is very much involved, of course, through the endocrine system, but also the frontal lobe can actually control that innate response once we are aware of it.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit of mindfulness so that you can use the entire parts of your brain too to actually control that survival mechanism that your body naturally goes into.
Yeah, because it really affects the hormones, because we're talking about the hypothalamus going to the pituitary, shooting up the adrenals to get going. But ideally, it should be the sympathetic nervous system which kicks in. And then, as you said, we run away from a predator in past times. But then the parasympathetic nervous system afterwards. And that's what I think when things like movement and exercise can help. But it seems like a lot of people, especially women, because if we look at chronic illness, it's predominantly women, right? And we are more hormone sensitive. And as we age, and a lot of women who do follow us are going through, and notice this is where that whole MCAS histamine cycle and immune system, so that's another place in the body. And I suffer from this. And many people going through perimenopause or chronic illness will all of a sudden feel like they're sensitive to smells, like you're having an immune response, a stress response. And the best way, like no matter who I talk to, including myself, is we can do everything, the quercetin, we can, what else can we do? Many things we can try and do to lower the response in the body of these histamines being released and the prostaglandins being released, and people take medications. But essentially the one common thing is to calm the nervous system, to calm a nervous system. And that seems to be so far removed from what people are able to do these days, or even learnt when it comes to chronic illness. I don't think I ever had anybody teach me how to regulate, or even that my nervous system was off. It was always a set place in my body that was broken. And the more I thought about it, the more stressed that I kind of got. But I will say usually movement, getting my heart rate up a bit each day helps. Grounding really helps me. The ocean really helps me. But I've never met two people who regulate the same way.
No,
breath work, all of that sort of thing.
No, you wouldn't regulate the same way, because first of all, you have to recognize what the triggers are, because sometimes we try and do breath work and meditation, but we are still surrounded by that trigger, and a lot of people may be unaware of what that trigger is. So whilst you're trying to calm your nervous system, you still have that trigger in place. So that's very important to actually pay attention to. Something else that the science is finding out, which is really interesting, is the role in the vagus nerve management. And a lot of people, they don't even realize what the vagus nerve is or does. So we have this nerve that goes really from the bottom of our digestive system all the way to our brain. And that is where a lot of the communication, even with our gut, happens from. And it's a beautiful pathway that is normally regulated. By breathing exercises, releasing, especially with the core exercise, with the diaphragm. So just contracting and releasing, massages can release that. So even like facial movements can release that. So there's a lot of activation for the vagus nerve to work better. And that is something that a lot of people don't even pay attention to. So whilst you might do the meditation, whilst you might do the breath work, there are the triggers still in place. You need to be aware of what they are, because you need to try really and remove yourself from them. Not that they will disappear, especially if they're part of our daily life and routine. But if you're aware of them, you know exactly when to put yourself in a situation where you actually can remove yourself from them, and calm down the system. And also learn about vagus nerve exercises. Very, very important. And then the nutrition also comes in here, because there are stimulants that will work on the adrenal glands. So we want to make sure that we don't have those stimulants when we are in stressful times. And we can talk about the, coffee, for example. Coffee, that as much as it has amazing benefits, a lot of polyphenols, is great for the gut. It is a stimulant, and it does stimulate the adrenal glands. So if you are already in a stressful situation, having coffee can make it worse, or any caffeinated drink. So you want to remove those kind of things. And then think about stress as something that hardens, so that makes you stiff.
Yeah.
So all the nerves stiffen up, and so you need to try and relax. So something to take for that could also be, for example, magnesium, which does the opposite of what caffeine would do, for example. So there are all these kind of little things that we have to think about. That's why the conversation on stress, I think, it's very beautiful, because it's holistic, but it's also a difficult one for a system where we are talking in the medical field anyway, allopathic medicine, unless you get to see a wonderful integrative doctor, it's so hard to pinpoint, because normally you look at what is the symptom, and then you just try to give something to stop the symptom, and the root cause is then left behind. So what we talked about just now, like all these little pieces that create the response of stress in the first place.
Yeah. And I think what I remember when I was extremely sick, so in a whole lot of stress, is something that could calm one person would literally send me through the roof. So touch and massage and heat for me was no good. Cold and calm worked a lot better. So a lot of people, I know, it's the way the world is, they want this quick answer that's going to help them. And I mean, I can tell people that I just feel this time for me because there was no distractions with pain or doctors or medications, it was so apparent that my whole system had frozen. I couldn't run. I needed people to do most things. You could call my chronic fatigue on heat. Like it was, if you went to a doctor, they're probably like, your chronic fatigue's flared up. I felt no matter what I did, my histamine issues were really bad. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I shut down. But out of all of what happened, and, people might say, did the trip work, or, what kind of worked? It's this way of feeling safe no matter what I decided to do. So I tried juicing. I tried doing more of the keto again, and I was getting myself worked up. But when I set myself free and just was like, just go with it. And I know I'm somebody who doesn't watch a lot of television, but it wasn't even like I could see the television, but it made me feel safe that the same show was on every day. And there's actually studies being done that people go to the same show every day because they feel familiar with the characters. Like in a world of chaos, it's the one thing a lot of people with chronic illness can feel safe in. And these main characters never die, so you get to meet them again every day. And it was helpful to go away, but in actual fact, so it's been about 3 months. And if anyone watching doesn't know, I had somebody steal my identity online, and it just set off a whole lot of stress and trauma and things like that. Is that time looking after myself, even if I feel I'm getting it wrong, I was still getting it right as long as I believed in what I did. Of course, calming as much as you want. You don't want to keep bringing stress in, but I was pretty frozen. And I would have to say it's come full circle till now, where I'm talking to you guys again. I'm about to do what I love, my podcast. I've got everything back. Even when I got it back, I actually got sick. It was like this release. When I get it back, I got most of my bank accounts, my channel, things like that all came back. Is then I actually got sicker for about 2 weeks, where I just cyclic vomiting.
Yeah.
Could not keep anything down at all. My whole digestive system just froze. So this situation is very not so dramatic, is what I would say, because there's not a constant illness going on. Something has set this off. But if I was to give my advice on this versus chronic illness, when I was chronically ill, I was doing my best. And this, I could love me. I could sit in this space of calming you. Today you want to go for a walk, tomorrow you don't. That's okay, Sky. Don't be like, you're not walking, you're not talking to your friends, you're not getting away, your parents still. Don't do that. Sit in the space and go through it, because life is chaotic, and any calm we can get can really help.
Totally. And I think in your case is really interesting, because there is not just the stress, like a person that doesn't have the trauma that you have. Because I think you've done so much work to heal, and your identity is attached to the outcome, which is your beautiful channel and the things created. And I think we talked about this offline, where it's rework your thoughts around, you have created all this, but like, this is not you. You are you. You're like the creator of all this, and you can do it anytime and all over again. But this for you happened in your healing, and anything before that time was, the suffering, the being, the feeling of being outside or outside the world, really not being productive, not being connected. It was a lot of trauma, plus obviously all the medical things that were happening. Like, everything is connected, so your brain makes these associations, which by definition will bring in a stressful input. Then what happens when you were taken out of your account? It was like the trauma of going back to having nothing, to not being present, in the atmosphere with your knowledge and your healing and your journey, to be like deleted. That was an extra stress. Like, a person that doesn't have the trauma around it would have been stressed, but they would have been like, effort, like, okay, let's see how I can fix this. Then they fix it, they breathe in, they breathe out, we're back to business. For you, it was breathing in, and then the body, your whole system, your sympathetic system, nervous system, just collapsed on you. So you actually got sick, because your immune system has been triggered, because you obviously have already that the propensity of getting immune responses. Often your immune system released, and that's when you just got sick, and you had to recover now, on top of having fatigue as well, which wasn't helping.
Yeah. And look, in hindsight, and I know you guys were supporting me through this and saying this, is you come out stronger. If you, in a time of horror or stress or trauma, look after yourself, even when it feels hard, and you don't self-destruct, how strong I feel now. And in fact, a huge part, and this may not happen to many people, but a lot of people do contact me and say this, is I had emotional amnesia. So my brain split. It just stopped basically working, even remembering my name or address back in 2017. So for the past 3 years, it's after I juiced is when it started to come back. Even 2 years on Raw, I was still very detached. Why I think I got well so fast, I couldn't remember. And it's been getting better and better. But I noticed at the start of the year, a lot of, and even I think symptoms, even on blood tests, are coming up, because I remember myself so much more. This catapulted me to reconnect with who I really am. I feel most like myself I have in years. And I always knew this was a double-edged sword, right? It's great to feel like myself, but with that, the heaviness right? So I've always been grateful I can't remember, because there's a reason the brain does its job like that. But it has catapulted me into a great level of healing and strength, and just reminds me, because, you know, as you get further along, you are more comfortable in life, and it reminds me what I'm actually capable of doing. Because when this happened, every time I thought of not having anything again, I couldn't cope. It was almost like shaking, because you are trying not to think about it, shaking it off. And I've talked a lot about emotional amnesia, and a lot of people who have been through excessive amounts of trauma, it doesn't even have to be medical, some sort of trauma, say they feel the same when they think back to their past. They recall events, because I've spoken about it over many years. It gets stored in different parts of the brain. I can tell you, it's like standing up and doing a lecture, talking about somebody else, but I can't feel like being like, I remember my birthday, like that, you know, and your whole body kind of lights up. That has not been there only for the last 3 years. So I want to say that as well, because you don't want to, when you're trying to get rid of stress, you're already in a fear response. You don't want to be then scared that you're never going to get out. And I'm so blessed that I have beautiful people around me, including my family, who kept saying, even though I didn't feel I believed it, it does go in, saying that you will become stronger and you will get through this. And I think words like that are important. You know, you saying things. Some people like to journal. Some people like to touch flowers. Anytime I was able to get outside during this period, I did feel better. Like, even if I thought I can't do it, that night I did feel better. But yeah, I've dumped a lot of information there. But I want people to know at the end of this, there is a purpose, like that spiritual underlying life purpose. It's made me stronger.
Absolutely. I think, you know, when you feel like you're losing yourself, or you even feel like you lost yourself, but there is that fighting voice within you, that intuition, that beautiful, what should we call it? Our soul calling.
I think people call it different things. So I refer to it at different times. Like, sometimes I talk to God, which is essentially my higher self. I always feel that there's a self that I can't see that's pulling me in a certain direction. And some call it source or God, but I call it, I guess, my higher self.
Yeah, your higher self. And that calling can be very powerful. And I think if you are tapped into, it will get you out of the most, like the very bottom where you at. Like, and this is something I personally experienced and appreciated when I got sick, or when I was in true, you know, bottom of my health journey. When I got very sick and I just didn't even want to be here anymore. And still, you know, I didn't, and I was very stressed. Like, I was constantly stressed, to the point that my nervous system was so triggered that even a good morning would trigger me, would set me off, which is crazy when you think about it. Like, somebody's actually coming out of their room and they say good morning, and you're just like, yeah, go away, leave me alone, you know, like, you don't want to even deal with that voice. Like, it's crazy if you think about it in hindsight after, but at the time everything felt overwhelming. So I completely understand. And I think we don't appreciate how severe this, because of course we are also in an time and age where a lot of self-help books are available, so we can read the right thing, we can read how to do things in the right way, but we often don't appreciate. And when we are in that situation, in that moment, perhaps is a little bit more challenging to truly feel like, yeah, it will get better. Yeah, I can be mindful. Yeah, I can breathe into this. Okay, there's no breathing. There's no being mindful. You're in survival. You're reactive, you know? So that's particularly important to understand, because that will give us a little empathy for people that are in that situation.
And I have to say, like, I've had 60 surgeries, 8 organs removed. I wasn't depressed in those times. I didn't even feel stressed. In fact, the stress gave me a hyper focus, and I think my identity was built around that persona. It was afterwards. So it's interesting, because a lot of people who will see somebody with, you know, burns to 70% of their body that's just happened, or they've become you know, they've got cancer and they're fighting cancer and they've got more surgeries or something going on, they feel guilty because they're coming out of chronic fatigue or burnout, and they wake up and they don't want to be here. right? And there's people going, you know, speaking on platforms, going through all of this. Is, in my experience, when I was going through severe trauma, like top tier, is that adrenaline was actually my best friend. It's when that all gets taken away, it's almost like, because there's a dopamine response, right? Dopamine is going to get us moving. It gives us, you know, its purpose. It's why we get out of bed in the morning. So you give someone a whole lot of adrenaline and you've got dopamine and it stops. And all, it depends how high you've been, right? Is how far you fall. And I just want to talk on that. I never would wake up when I was chronically sick and not want to be here anymore. And I think I had my identity around pain. It happened afterwards and it did come up again. And I spoke to mum because I was writing things down that I was going through. And the word suicide came up. And mum said, I don't think it's suicide. I said, you're right. It's not that. That's something that probably comes next for people. It's just waking up and wanting to die or not want to be here. There's no actually thoughts of wanting to harm myself in any way. It's just you wake up and you don't want to be here. So yeah, I've come really far and I love that my brain is in a better place now and doesn't remind me of this daily. But I want to talk about it just because a lot of people can feel guilty for feeling this way.
Yes, there's a lot of guilt. And again, I think it's because the conversations that we're having here are not yet mainstream in a way, you know, like there's a lot of shame for people when they feel like they're not managing. Let's put it that way, because you feel like you're not managing when you go through stuff like that, right? And we are expected to manage because what the hell, everybody does this. Everybody has a difficult time. Everybody has stress. So how can you complain about your stress? Like, you're not entitled to complain about your stress. That's the message we get. A lot of gaslighting.
True.
So if you're a sensitive person or you really have reached that time where you are incredibly, like you're at the bottom of it, you need to hear that it's okay to feel stressed and it's okay not to manage, it's okay not to handle, and it's okay to feel overwhelmed. It will get better. And there is support for you, which is really, really important to remind ourselves with, because again, we feel lonely when we don't have that support system, you know? We feel like something has been taken away from us. And, it is so important to truly tap in and be like, okay, I know that this is a difficult time and I'm going to get better. Because the people around you will say, like with your parents, what we did tell you is like, it will get better. You know, even if at the moment you didn't believe it, having us all telling you is like, look, we're going to give you all the time you need, take it, but you know it will get better, even if right now it feels really dark, you know, and things started happening. And so I think that reinforced that subtle belief in the back. But we definitely need to stop gaslighting people. I feel like we do that a lot as a society, and that's really, really terrible.
And I think that is the biggest problem with chronic illness and people seeking help with doctors. If I know a very common theme I see, and I like looking at TikTok because I love people's real stories, is it reminds me of myself, is where people, you have a folder this big of all these health problems and you booked an appointment with a neurologist 3 months away, right? So your whole life at this point is pinned on this next specialist. You go and see them for 15, 20 minutes and they've dismissed everything you've said. And what you said here is so true, is it is okay to not be okay. Like if you can even sit with that on days where you're right, I did not believe you guys that things would get better, or my family, you know, and it's not even that the thoughts come up that what do you know what I'm going through, is you're so in flight or fight, you really can't think of the next process. But this is why I go do podcasts and do more and go live, is because I've been there and there's so many people out there who need support, who want to hear people talking daily. And there's so many people who've been through it. And I remember over $1 million would have been spent on my health with professionals and professors and surgeries, yet homeless with the F&D when my brain didn't work and I'd lost everything. I got myself well. And that to me is so powerful. And so I love speaking to especially women who heal themselves, and no two people have ever healed themselves in the same way. There's common aspects, But this is why it's like, listen to where you're at. And the other thing is, if you can't move and you have chronic fatigue or whatever, you're not supposed to move. That's really hard for me to sit with. I've dumped a lot of information there, but that just came up as well. Is it's okay to not be okay? Is you will be gaslit by your whole life hinges on this, and then they basically say you've got nothing wrong with you. But if you are tired, if you can't work, you have to stop. And if you think, oh no, I've got to keep making money, your body will find a way to make you stop. I promise.
Yeah, it does. Actually, that's a really important point. If people stop and think for a second, the common denominator of all disease, it's fatigue.
Yes.
The first thing, because your body is going to stop bringing the nutrients and everything that your mitochondria needs to create energy on purpose, because the immune system needs to do its job and your nervous system needs to repair. So how is that going to happen? Think what happens at night when we sleep. We repair. That's repairing time. You're not digesting food. Hopefully you don't eat just before bed. You're not having to do anything but sleep.
Yeah.
And so that sleep time, without any other job in your body, it's your repair time. It's for the lymphatic system in the brain. It's for the digestive system. It's for the cells in your brain. It's for the lymphatic system. It's for just repairing a cellular level. And so this is actually why fasting overnight is the most beneficial time, instead of like stressing the body over the day. Because when you're fasting overnight, you also get, after 17 hours or at 17 hours, you are already in autophagy. So autophagocytosis, which is basically the automatic cleansing of the cell.
Yeah.
Can be reached also with a low protein diet that, for example, Dr. Walter Longo created, the fast mimicking diet. So people do that fast mimicking diet once every 6 months, for example. It's a set of food where you keep your calories very low, but you're still eating, and your body will go into autophagy, so that you are still cleansing the cells, but you are not basically fasting per se, which actually controls your cortisol levels, which is great for people that are very stressed, actually.
In actual fact, the gastroparesis that happened, I tried to, because obviously food healed me before, so it's part of my trauma healing that I'm trying to use food. And what's ended up happening is I can only eat one small meal a day. I fasted last week with just cucumber and celery juice, a little bit of hemp milk for 4 days. And then I wanted to have a meal, but it takes so long right now. And I already am missing the top part of my digestive system for that food to come through. And as soon as I come out of ketosis, and when I say ketosis is I don't necessarily have to just have oil and fats. I can do a little bit of low sugary fruits. I can do like as I say, cucumber and celery. But as soon as I get that glucose or fructose or carbohydrates in my body too high, my system is just not working. And this is not the cure for everybody. This is what I've learned because I sat in a space and listened. And when it comes to weight, my weight will not budge. It's like it's holding on to like everything right now. And I know that's not everyone's story. A lot of people will get stressed and they lose a lot of weight very quickly. But I just seem to be in this path where anything. And I knew that about my healing, and that's why what I share a lot of is if I go out of balance very quickly, and it's I mean, many people have been through a lot with all the organs missing and all my histories. It's like I go like this. And when you age and when you've been through menopause like me, it happens quicker. I think, children and healthy people can go out and swing back in, and that's just life. With me, I work very hard on, my juicing and my being outdoors and grounding, because if like what's happened here, I don't want that to go all the way off. But you talking about the fasting, has been really, and I've adapted it to me, what works for me, has been the last key, because everything stopped. And then that's what makes me even sicker, and my trauma comes up because it was just a mess. But I've got here.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly how you are self-aware. That's exactly how it starts. And it should be, for us to be aware of everything that is happening within us, and instead of being so disconnected from how we actually feel. But I think it's a good actually segue to talk about the practicality of this, because I think we are speaking conceptually about stress and people get it most of the time. But where I think maybe there are some things that can tell you you're stressed, and so to pay attention before it becomes an issue even. So obviously paying attention to your sleep pattern. If your sleep is disrupted, where does that disruption comes from? Is it a lifestyle habit that you need to change, like eating too late at night, or not having the right temperature in the room, or you name it, find out what that is? Or is it because you're stressed and you cannot switch off your brain, which is something that happens very often for people, and it does exacerbate. Oh my God, I can't talk tonight.
Exacerbates.
Yes. It's too late. In perimenopause and menopause, like you can't shut off your brain. Do you digest your food properly? Because even digestive problems can be related to a stressful situation. Because again, I said at the beginning, when you are in stress, your body is going to shut down digestion, because the last thing you need to do is digest food. That's not important anymore. Right now, what's important is to bring energy to your limbs so you can run away from this hypothetical tiger, right, that is chasing you. So are you unable to actually digest your food? Like you eat it, but you don't go to the toilet in a timely manner. You're constipated. Maybe you are gassy. Maybe you have heartburn. Maybe you don't even feel hungry. That's something that can happen. Well, a lot of people might be happy about that, but actually that means you are really just blocked when you are but other people respond in a different way, which is really, again, reiterates how different we are. Are you emotional eating? So you're eating food that actually will make your nervous system even worse, like a lot of sugar, because if you're not, it's connected. You see, like you're not sleeping well, now you're tired, so your body's going to want a little bit more carbohydrates to have more glucose into the blood. You are going to reach for things that are starchy and quick sugar releases. So and then that doesn't allow you to sleep well again, and that also stresses your body. It's like you go in circles, and so having that, that moment where you're like, let's identify these little symptoms before they become big ones and before they become an issue, and let me work on them. Let me understand why this is happening, and just a simple shift, one habit can actually make a big difference. Which is like, okay, if you're an emotional eater, when you're stressed, sit down at the table with your plate if you want even, and breathe before 5-10 times, and ask yourself if you're hungry. If you're not hungry, don't eat. Keep on breathing. And once you actually do that, you will not want the food anymore. Because I notice with me, I have a tendency to still, if I'm in a very stressful situation, to use food as a crutch. And I know that I blank out when that happens. I'm not mindful at all. Like I'm gonna eat. And what I mean when I eat is not what I eat then is not even like unhealthy, but it doesn't work for me, which is like dates combined with nut butter, which is like a marriage made in heaven in heaven when it comes to taste, but in hell for my body. And I would just get that hit, like, oh, this is so delicious and it's good and I feel good, and then after I feel crap. So and I feel even more stressed now because I've eaten something that doesn't make me feel good, and it takes me a week to feel better. And so I've learned slowly to actually manage even that, so paying attention, breathing into it. I'm like, okay, am I hungry? If I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. Even if that means that day I'm not going to fast, like today I didn't fast because tonight I was like, actually, I'm quite hungry. I'm going to eat. I'm going to calm my nervous system, because I know that if I force myself not to eat when I actually feel like, because I'm very good at fasting. After 5 o'clock, I'm not hungry anymore. But today I was. And so I was like, okay, if I'm hungry, that means I need to listen.
Yes. Speaking of fasting, is I guess once I feel like because food helped me and I was so underweight, there was a real crutch for years, and I was doing a lot of fruits. And over time, my system, you put on the weight and your body's adapted. It doesn't need as much. And doing the more keto version of raw has helped me. But I will say, going through everything I just went through, the last thing was what you're saying is this fasting aspect where, what I notice is, and I hydrate a lot with still with the cucumber and celery juice. What I notice is there's also a lot of freer energy in my body to get going again. It's almost like shoving all these juices in and trying even really high fat keto was weighing me down. And then that's the thing I wanted to bring up as well, is a lot of people I feel are going to ask, how do I know if this is stress or this is my disease? And my theory is that the stress was there first before the disease. But for me, if I can I noticed this when I got shingles, and why I juiced myself out of that is because my digestion stops. Once it stops, I seem to stop. They're in alignment for me. So for me, the fasting, and I, like you, feel like I was well trained by the time I got here, because I've been doing these keto smaller meals for about 6 months. Before that, it was more like raw food, got to get calories. And I'm like, this is not working. I'm puffy, I'm putting on weight, and I felt there was this underlying inflammation. And once I moved across to the keto, I did a lot better, but it really had served me at the end when it comes to the digestion. I've noticed that I cannot get well anytime unless my digestion is able to move in some respect. If I'm locked, I'm on the bed locked. So that's for me. But yeah.
I actually relate to those things. Like if I for 3 weeks I was not as regular as I normally am. The last week I started actually being more regular again, back to my normal, and it makes such a difference. Such a difference. And again, you're right. Like sometimes we need to change the way that we eat to support the body. And actually, remember, we talked a couple of times where I was like, okay, I'm gonna just stop a little bit the tofu so I can do the whole 100% raw vegan. That does not work for me. That just doesn't. My body needs that extra protein without the extra fat, and it's gonna ask for it, and I react if I don't take it, as in I retain more water, I'm not regular. Like I actually need to have, I can stop protein for a week and not have a problem, like not protein in general, but like the tofu, but I actually need the extra because I do train with weights. I do train a lot, and my body's like, no, I felt the inflammation in my leg. Like I felt the burning, and it wasn't like lactic acid burning. It was real inflammation burning. And the moment I started adding more protein, the whole system just calmed down.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is amazing, not feeling full here because like you're retaining water. Like it's amazing.
And this is something that and I'm not somebody who is like, you have to be raw and you have to do it this way. I'm like, you have to do what works for you. And there's quite a few people I know that do raw with tofu. And obviously, we haven't spoken on this, but on this channel, this podcast, but before I went raw, my body would often show that it was not making proteins. So doctors would often give me more protein 3 times a day, right? And it never went up. My body was never, and it just got more and more proteins were not being made. And then I went raw and I was able to assimilate. And at the start, I ate more veggies and greens. When I got into the fruit, I'm not sure I did so well, but my blood test has come back and it's kind of showing the same thing again. So I start craving even fattier foods that have protein, like peanuts and hemp. And so 2 things came up during this time, but I'll move to the tofu one. So I've never had cooked food in the past 5 years, ever. I did come back and try tofu. I came back from Cairns and tried tofu. And something my naturopath said to me when I first went raw, because he was just amazed at how healthy I got so quickly. And he said, Sky, when you do raw, you have no memories of raw food. So as soon as you because I never really do, I do well with salt, pepper, raw. As soon as I add spice or apple cider vinegar, things don't go well for me. And he's like, there's no memory of it. Like when you got to start this whole new version of yourself with a diet that has no triggers. I believe my body, because I'm doing a lot more hemp milk and I do keto so I can get the fat from the hemp, which is just working out great for me. But I feel the response my body gets from tofu isn't that the tofu is bad, it's the memory. Because I was very sick when I lived off a lot of tofu for years. I was vegan for 2 years. And so, in my experience, there is this correlation in memory and then who we are. And the more you sit in a space as well, it's safe, right? Is you feel good with tofu and raw foods, and it's creating this memory and this persona, which makes you stronger and regulates your nervous system as well as giving you nutrients. So I think it's really important because, to be honest, and I've said this before, if I could tolerate cooked foods, I would do raw with occasional sweet potato and tofu and tempeh. That's how I would ideally, but it's not. I think the memory goes first, but it also is slower and locks up. But the correlation is quite interesting about how we do actions, like even eat foods, and the memory there.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. This is why how powerful the brain is, and this is why, when we talk about healing, it needs to be a holistic approach. Absolutely.
It does. Now, I wanted to bring up well, first off, how do you think a person defines, you've got a disease going on, but if the symptoms are stress over the top? Because a lot of the time I look back and I never knew. I think doctors are constantly telling me this is all part of this diagnosis. But really now I know, this is what life teaches you as you start healing journey, that a lot of it was just stress. How do you think people can discern their inbuilt disease symptoms, especially any disease, versus the stress response?
I mean, what I would do, I can tell you what I do with my clients when I see them, and how we try and identify, because of course it needs a little bit of mindfulness to understand what exactly is happening in that person's life right there. So we talk about the symptoms, because when we work on a protocol, generally the symptoms are the two things that can happen. The protocol works well for a person whose body is apt to dealing with the change and they don't get any healing crisis, or they get through a healing crisis which makes the symptoms worse. So first of all, are you on a protocol, and have you spoken to your practitioner about the healing crisis that can happen? So you expect them, and they don't normally last more than 1 or 2 weeks. They are okay there, they get bad, and then they start getting better and they go away. So that that is just part of the healing process. If, however, you've gotten better, so you started the protocol, you got better, then your symptoms come back, what is happening in your life that is triggering? Because at that point, that might be an actual response to stress. Because if the symptoms go away when you started the healing journey, that means your body and your system should be apt to dealing with the changes and the healing protocol. And then if something happens that triggers, your immune system is going to be triggered as well, right? So it's going to respond as if you had a pathogen in your body. So you might get rashes, you might get fever, you might get stomach ache, you might get warts, like anything, literally anything can happen. And so those two things are definitely something to recognize, and then talk to your practitioner, and then it's a trial and error. So we start with calming down the parasympathetic system. So can you perhaps spend time breathing deeper, go in nature, be calm, put off your phone, maybe take a couple of days off work if you can afford it, especially if you're in a country where you still get paid if you are off work for sick leave, which again is most countries. So make sure that you are actually conversing with your general practitioner, because sometimes needing that few days off means just asking your practitioner to give you a note for work. Do it, it's worth it. And you know what, it might be more work when you go back, unless you have somebody helping you in your team, but your health is so much more worth that not taking that time off. Then I would say definitely changing the diet in the term, like if you are obviously people that are on a healing protocol, they would be on a diet that they're hopefully following. If you're not following, maybe go back to the notes of the naturopath or doctor. Try to stay on with the plan, because that's exactly why you're maybe reacting. But some people don't have even a disease and they actually start, they haven't changed their diet. They maybe just started managing stress. Maybe it's time to look at the diet. So look at what you
Mm.
need. If you're eating processed foods laden with sugar, extra salt, extra fats, release that. Go back, go to nature. Go for your fruit and vegetables. Go for the whole grains if you can tolerate them. Go for food that loves you back, that gives you nutrients. And you said we look at, and I do that too sometimes. Like I look at calories because I'm like, oh, I need to make sure I have enough calories because I want to get my period back, and I want to make sure I eat enough. But like sometimes that's more stressful for me than knowing that I'm eating a diet that is full on nutrient dense and I'm giving my body the nutrients. So focus on nutrients. Okay, don't count calories. Focus on having an abundance of food, enough protein. By the way, when you're stressed, protein is really important. So protein, having lots of fiber, very important as well, because your microbiome has a part to play in stress management. So you want to make sure you have fiber so that you can create those short chain fatty acids such as butyrate, and really, really support the nervous system with the diet as well. Then sleep hygiene, if that means you need to be in bed early, and by early I mean by 10 o'clock without the screen and with a book instead, please do offer yourself that kindness, because even that can actually tell you you're overstimulated. So you need to calm down. You need to release that stimulation. So these are the things that will tell you if you are actually reacting, or if you are if you are in stress mode, or if it's a healing crisis. But generally, healing crisis comes as you start the healing journey and you're changing your plan and you are on a protocol. And that's when it's the flare up of all the shit that is behind, and then it gets better. If you are being better and then it comes up, that's definitely a stress response.
I mean, symptoms of a disease are the body in stress anyway, right? It's doing things that it's not supposed to be doing every day, and it wants you to rest. And I used to always think when I worked in an office is how much, even when someone starts to get the flu, why they never take 2 to 3 days off, versus then they get so sick, the whole office spreads and they end up having to take a whole week off because they're longer, because they've got themselves so sick. It's like, or they'll try and push through with a whole lot of drugs that last for like 2 days, and then they're so sick. So it's worth definitely slowing down. I do also want to say, it's when it comes to this, we've spoken about
What is that?
I think they want to report they're just I'm going to ban user. They're a troll, so we'll get rid of them.
Report
I got rid of a comment. It would still be on the screen, but I got rid of them. Is emotions. We've spoken a lot here just about the symptoms and the physical things we go through, but it's okay to cry. And I actually think that the more I release and let myself feel what I need to feel, the quicker I have got myself better. Because a lot of it I feel I'd learnt to block. Otherwise, I think from a young age I would have been crying most days. But this time, there were days where I was numb, but there were days where I would cry most of the day. And the more I accepted that, the better it was. Also, after that, it releases a lot of feel-good hormones. So you can feel a lot more placid, and you can even see things differently. So don't be afraid to feel emotions. Journaling helped me as well. But yeah, emotions are all part of this. It's what makes us human.
Yeah, it does. Exactly. And you're right, releasing is so important. I don't know why. Those are the things we should learn at school, don't you think?
Oh my God. So the biggest thing that came to me was, what the F did I learn at school when nobody taught me to get up, how important it is to have your shower, have it slowly, brush. It's not rush through brushing your teeth and have a shower. And if you remember to eat, shoving a coffee down and then being drilled with information about what somebody else has done. It's you haven't learned. I was like, why are we not taught to look after ourselves? That should be, because the more I look after myself, the better my life is. As soon as it goes off, life falls apart. Why are we not taught this?
We're not taught this because we just haven't. We do not have a system that thinks about our well-being. We have a system that thinks about patching the problem to make a profit. Really.
I feel it's very male energy driven, as in like you can get, this is how I see females and males is women are flowy, are circular, are go in and out, and we're emotional. And then males, you can give them a direction, like you might like, I need a pizza. They will just be like, pick up the phone and order what you usually have. Women, like, they think about the children, who's coming. Oh, people are coming in, we'll order extra. Women are flowy, right? And I feel like when I think of school, it's so just information, cram it in your brain and forget about yourself. Whereas we're not nurtured.
No, we're not nurtured. I mean, but I also have to say, this is might sound conspiratorial, but I guess I'm going to say it because this is what I personally noticed. And I know I make a joke about school being small, being prisons for small people. But if you think about it, in a school, you learn to obey,
Yes.
to listen, not to think. You learn what to think so that you can become a collaborative part of society, meaning you are going to do what you're told. So when you are in your job, you're told that the job needs to be done this way, and you obey because you can gather the information, so you feel good about yourself being able to deliver on the information you've been given without even questioning it. And I remember when I worked in banking before I changed my career completely, but I was studying nutrition and naturopathy. Naturopathy I started studying after I left, but I was studying yoga and I was studying nutrition. And one of the things that I remember vividly was, they were saying to us, we want you to come up with ideas that are outside the box for this role, because we're trying to create a new role for a new department in due diligence and anti-money laundering. And I was like, okay. And I remember talking to the head of the department about like ideas that I had. And he was like, yeah, but no, those are not things that we do here. I'm like, so tell me something. You want me to come up with something innovative that we cannot do because it's not done here? Or you need me to come up with something that continues the status quo, so that you're not threatened by the changes? Like, I don't understand. And so it's like, no, well, it needs to be aligned with what we have already in place, because we're not going to change the whole system. We just want to modify, improve it. And in my head, I was like, how do you improve something that is broken? But also, like, you're telling me that actually what I'm thinking is not valid. I need to think what you want me to think. And if I think about back at school, when I realized that this was the case, when I went to live in Mauritius, and I was in an international school, which is very different from a South African school or an Italian school, and where like you are told what to learn, And I'm sure in the school where I was in Le Bocage it happened too, but I had this history teacher who I absolutely loved, and that was one of my majors. And she said to me, we're going to look at the history of the Cold War between the US and USSR, and we are going to look at the perspective of each side, which, of course, she was American on top of it. She would have just said, Russia is bad, or USSR are bad. America was the hero, that's it. She was like, think about the two sides and where they come from. And she said to us, these characters that were in power at the time, that were control, like in the Cold War, so Kennedy and oh God, I don't remember who it was, Gorbachev. Gorbachev was, but anyway, I don't remember the Russian leader at the time, but I think it was Gorbachev. No, maybe it's not. Gorbachev was in the 80s, before him. It's been a while, guys, over 20 years. So I haven't really looked at that.
And this has really imprinted itself on you as well. Yeah, like that's interesting, right?
It's not so much the name of the Russian ones. Kennedy, we know because, he was assassinated. Everybody's like, oh, the poor guy. So she was talking about this Cold War and how people were like, we only look at one side, and normally history is written by the winners, by the way. So it's one side always. There is never you will never try to understand the other side because they're the enemy, right? You do always have to have in a story, you have to have the good guy and the bad guy. This is why, interestingly, with Disney, they have been doing all these remakes of like the, Maleficent with like Sleeping Beauty, and they made Maleficent, and they make you understand why she was the way that she was. Actually, she wasn't the bad guy, right? Which has never been like, always had the villain and the good and the Prince Charming. Freaking boring. Like Prince Charming never do anything anyway. But so you go to I mean, come on, they come in and give you a kiss like happily ever after.
We ain't getting sponsored by Disney anytime soon.
No, for sure. We don't want that kind of sponsorship.
No.
Unless we make like serious, like real human beings. But we have been taught to obey. So you learn to think that that's the truth and not question it. And that's when I just was like, oh my God, this is what schools do. So knowing the system of the school, and also when you learn the history, like the school system was created by the Rockefeller. There is a lot of incentives in making sure people obey and follow the program. Do not, and they call it a program for a reason, do not try to be smart, think outside the box. Like, you need to think like everybody else. And so why would they teach us to listen to our body? Why would they teach us that we have this innate intuition? Why would they teach us that we need to manage stress to be healthy? We're not profitable when we're not controllable. Really, that's the end. Really. The bottom.
Yeah. And there's a couple of things there, but the biggest one in my mind is, so I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I think about how the people I know, and I've had mental health issues that I know that have ADHD, there's a common thread, and that is you can put them in a maths class and they will not pay attention, but you put them in art or music or photography, or they may surf or whatever, they can do it for 10 hours straight, or they can do their art for a certain period of time. In that evolutionary, we were not supposed to be controlled, but then obviously breeding is going to be favorable because people make more money who have done this. But I think about how I could not listen when it was just crap. And I think a lot of people and it's like this empathy thing, and I think we have a more susceptibility to get illness, is it's a gift to be aware or self-aware. And there's a couple of comments just over here, and one of them really stood out to me. Someone said, "This is amazing, ladies. Thank you." But this comment is, every time my dad told me to do something, he would say, "Okay, now come on, go quick like a bunny, fast like a rabbit." I still trip over my feet when I am with him. And what I noticed when I got on my healing journey was I had been a rabbit my whole life, the running. And all of a sudden I noticed the more I chip away at something, I eventually get there. I never got anywhere. It was like chasing my tail as a rabbit. And, the rabbit and the tortoise in the race, and they say slow and steady wins the race, and the tortoise going slow wins the race. I noticed, I wanted to run. Well, I had to walk for a year and a half before my body would, I'd been bedridden most of my life, would run. But I had to show up every day and chip away. I couldn't wake up, put a brand new gym outfit on and run 5 kilometers. And I tried to do things like that most of my life. If I want to heal, you got to wake up and look after yourself every day. And I feel like in the community, in this space, in this world, everybody wants the quick pill. What herb is going to fix me? What diet is going to take away all my problems? Where when you realize that when you become the tortoise, you will get where you want to go. We just need the time.
That is true. Exactly that. Exactly that.
Is there anything else you wanted to cover in today's?
Yeah, I think maybe can I add in supplements that can help with stress
management? Yeah, of course. I should have brought that up, but yeah, of course.
So I think magnesium, obviously, as we said at the beginning, that is really, really important. Also because we become deficient when we get stressed. We don't absorb it. B vitamins, super important. So that you get your B vitamins in your body. B complex should be fine. So you get the B6, B12, B5. So you really get enough of what you need. And then I would say those are the very, very important ones. Then obviously if you feel like your thyroid is being affected by the stress, which obviously is often the case, Iodine is really important, but I would say instead of supplementing from actual supplements, take things like kelp, and the seaweeds. They really, really intensely help to do this, like to really calm the entire system. Selenium and zinc might be worth also looking at in food, so seeds and nuts, because you can get deficient, and that will also impact your immune system. So make sure that you are like really maybe taking a multi really at this point, but like if you cannot do a multi for whatever reason, because there are some things in multi that you have enough of and you don't want to take more of, and it makes sense, then at least your B vitamins and the magnesiums are two things that I would not compromise on.
I like that. And what about things like, is there any teas or ashwagandha? Do you find any of those help just overall? I think before you start, sometimes even doing something as a ritual helps me. Even before I think the results, is in my peppermint tea every night. Feels safe.
Yeah. Those are beautiful. I mean, and they're safe. So teas, definitely. Herbal teas are great. And like things like verbena, Melissa officinalis, which is lemon balm. You can also do a blend of a lemon balm with some lavender in it and chamomile. Make sure with the chamomile you don't leave it too long, because actually it's a bitter, it's not sweet. Then you can do the adaptogenic herbs, absolutely, or roots even, which are better than the. So you can do ashwagandha, you can do maca. Those two are really, really good for stress. You can do medicinal mushrooms. So turkey tail, which will support also your immune system, but also your adrenals. Chaga and reishi are wonderful for stress management. So you could add these things in. Do you have to? No. If you cannot afford it, don't feel the pressure. Or if anything, you can choose one. If I had to choose one, I would choose between ashwagandha and maca. So which one you like best? I just think maca is amazing at releasing stress, but so is ashwagandha. If you're a woman, ashwagandha might even be a little bit more beneficial because it does support also hormones. So those things can be helpful. But we are talking about stress management, so do not get stressed to buy it if you cannot afford it. Then go for things like peppermint and all the herbs that you can find in your garden or on the street or in a shop that are cheap. Be smart with that. You can, if you go for the fresh ones in the store, brilliant. You can also, if you buy the fresh ones, you can freeze them, and from frozen you can still make a tea, or you can go for actual teas that are dry. Depending where you live, they might not be very expensive, and also you don't need much. And if you want, do it. If you want to do it like a therapeutic tea, like a medicinal tea, you need to let it brew for about 12 minutes to 15 minutes. Okay. So I would say for things that get bitter, like chamomile, add it 5 minutes before you add the brewing. Brew the sweet ones first, and then you can add the chamomile, because it really does get bitter. If you like bitter taste, that's fine. If you think you're going to sweeten it with stevia, you can even manage that. So, but absolutely, these things can be very helpful.
And I always think if you're already on a healing journey, I know what I'm like, and I've heard Dr. Morse talk on how people would come into his room and smell celery and be very attracted to it. And he'd say to them, it's because your body needs it. And so I often feel called to certain things. So don't ignore, because there's a lot of information we've given you. Some things, and like for me, I've worked on digestion more recently. There's none of these things. Like, you need the good sleep, you need to calm your system outdoors, you need some movement, you may need some time off, you need to calm the brain. There may be some supplements that help. I'm not sure, I may have missed some. Listen to your body. It's a full spectrum. It's okay to not be okay. And thank you, everybody. I know. Hey, I could see your other cat. Do you have 2 cats?
There are 3 here. They're actually not mine. I'm at a friend's house looking after his cat.
Hey.
Like, hello, let me come and say hello. Let me come in your face. The other ones are say bye-bye. Okay, baby. His name is Zed. Zed? Jose.
Oh, Josette?
It's a Portuguese name. Zed.
Zed?
Which Jose It's a Portuguese name
I get
for
it.
John. Sorry, I know.
Okay.
The Portuguese
I'm going
one.
to say, hey, cutie.
Oh, Jose, if you know what you're.
Oh, Jose. Yeah, I can say
Jose.
Jose.
So Jose,
Okay.
but it's with a J, Jose. But we call it
Oh, Jose. Okay.
Yeah. And so his name is Ze, and he is a very loving. I'm getting all the cuddles here.
Oh, just what you need. That's very. So animals are great for stress, may I say?
Yes,
they're
let's talk about that.
very important. I know my mum has dealt with chronic illness, and her dog, I was my dog when I lived there, has been life-changing many people, and they're grounding, they're loving, they teach us self-love. So thanks, guys. I hope you guys enjoy this. I'm very excited because next week we'll be talking on GLP-1, which is a huge topic, and I think that'll be a good episode. So I hope this one helped you, and we'll see you soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.